So, good afternoon to all of you. I hope you're not too terminally fatigued because there's quite a lot to unpack. And this is a very dense presentation. I wanted to say so much, and I was limited to 30 minutes. And unlike Hervé, who did it brilliantly, I think I might be tempted to speed up a little bit because I've got too much to say and I can't quite decide what is more important. But let's embark on this journey together. Let me begin with a simple thought experiment with all of you. So imagine you reach out for your phone, as you usually do. I think first thing in the morning, we all do that. There's breaking news. We scroll our feed. A yacht has sunk. Canada has allegedly declared war on the US. And there's video, there's an anchor, graphics, it's all tragic. It looks and feels very real. Except none of it is real. And the problem is not so much that it's fake, the problem is that we can no longer tell.
Angela Carter here, live from the Cedar Grove flood disaster. Just kidding, I'm not real. This is Dana Brooks reporting live from Ocean View Beach. From Clearwater Beach, where an unidentified... Just kidding, I'm not real.
In shocking news, J.K. Rowling's yacht sank with her on board after being attacked by orcas off the coast of Turkey.
In a stunning development, Canada has declared war on the United States. Let's go to Joe Braxton, who is live at the border.
Welcome to Audience 3.0, where professional news creators, the audience, and machines, so these are the three parties that we're going to talk about this afternoon, co-author reality itself. I think it's quite important for me to say that the word conundrum in my title is quite intentional, because I feel that we are no longer experiencing a simple problem. It's an exciting yet very disturbing puzzle that is in front of all of us. But since this 2025 edition of TimeWorld is about limits, I think it's fair enough that I should start and frame my talk by giving you the very limits of my presentation. So here's what my presentation won't be about this afternoon. So it won't be a technical teardown of AI, because I'm no specialist and I don't think it's the issue at hand here. It's not going to be an AI is evil or AI is magic type of sermon. So there's no dogmas involved in my presentation. But you might want to ask me then, what are you going to talk about, Hayet, this afternoon? Well, I'm going to take you on an evidence-based journey into the landscape, the digital media landscape worldwide. And we're going to see together and explore together the trends shaping this very ecosystem. Also, what I want to have you on board with me this afternoon is for us to explore new ways in which news are being consumed by you, by me, a former TV person, and so journalist myself. The way we consume news is very different. Let me run a tiny experiment in this room. I'm just going to ask you to be very honest with me, okay? I know it's recorded, but nobody will hold you accountable for this. So I want you to raise your hand if you go directly to a news, like a media site, when you want to look for specific news stories or you want to get just news updates. Okay? 2 people in the room, 3, okay. Now, keep your hand up if this is your main way of accessing news. Half a hand? A full hand, okay. Now, raise your hand if most of the news finds you through social media. Okay, that's quite clear. So, my question is this. This is why I've been asking you. If now the news is more an algorithmic journey than an intentional destination, what do you think this does to journalistic power? So, before I go any further, let's run together quickly through some of the terms and their definitions. I'm sure you're familiar with all of these, but I thought it might be useful for my presentation. So I've mentioned Audience 3.0. So what do I mean by that? Today's audience, even me included as a former TV person, and you, we don't consume news the way we used to do. So we expect a personalized, predictive, immersive experience. And we want to actively shape how information is being delivered. LLMs, large language models for short, are large AI models trained on vast amounts of texts. They power systems like ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, Claude, and the likes, as well as translation tools and AI-powered search by generating human-like language and summaries. It's important for the rest of the presentation. Generative AI is a subset of AI, of course, as the name names it, that creates new content, be it text, image, video, audio, or code. It's based on patterns learned from massive data sets, just as LLMs. But despite of thousands of publishers being out there, only a handful of AI companies, we call them the GOMACs, I think you know who they are. The GOMACs now act as the primary buyer of the world's digital content. And we call this an oligopsony, as opposed to the oligopoly concept. And you will see how important that is. Agentic AI refers to intelligent systems or software agents that act autonomously on our behalf. It's important because they now anticipate our needs and they execute tasks. So they move beyond simple content generation to managing complex and dynamic workflows. And this is extremely important in newsrooms and I think in many different ecosystems, not just the media and information industry. Last but not least, we've got the multimodal AI. It processes text, audio, images, and video together. And it allows newsrooms, for example, they rely on it quite a lot, to instantly transform a written piece of article into a video, a voiceover, or any interactive experience they want to offer to their audiences. Let's talk scale. So private investment in Gen AI has jumped almost 19% last year alone, reaching an eye-watering $33.9 billion worldwide. That's just beyond imagination. And that money powers tools that now allow anyone, and I'm saying anyone, not just journalism professionals, not just trained editors, anyone to create news in seconds. So no newsroom, no editors, no ethics board, just a prompt. And it has given rise to this.
Want to create your own AI news channel? Try these prompts to generate your very own AI news anchor.
Some people might be out of a job very quickly, me included. So our first stop that I want to take you on takes us to the United States. So what I'm about to share this afternoon comes from a study, an academic study, that was published in October this year, based on data collected just months prior. So I realized that although it's timestamped 2025, it's already maybe obsolete by the time I'm giving this presentation. And in a field that reinvents itself every few weeks, I think this is even almost prehistorical. So don't hold me accountable for this because I know it's no longer valid, perhaps, as I speak. But take it rather as a frozen frame of a moment when journalism had to reinvestigate itself. It's a meta thing. A meta destination for us. So because why did we need this? It was because nobody could quite tell who was writing the news anymore. Not the editors, not the readers, not even journalists themselves. So the study that you see here on the screen, titled AI Use in American Newspapers is Widespread, Uneven, and Rarely Disclosed, deployed an unusual investigative journalist. And I am calling on Pangram. So who's Pangram? He's not your traditional journal. He's an AI high-precision detector. He's a forensic journalist who uses code. And he dismantles articles line by line and assigns a probability of AI involvement, then deliver 3 of the following verdicts. You can see it on the colored bar. Green for human-generated, traditional. Red for AI-generated. And the yellow bar is mixed. And this is where we really need to look closely, because this category is perhaps the most unsettling. It's where human and machine overlap so seamlessly that even Pangram, with his supernatural powers, can't even separate them apart. And we do trust Pangram, don't we? Because his false positive rate is 1 in 100,000. It might not be much for you, scientists and researchers out there, but for us journalists, it's quite supernatural. So Pangram got to work. He investigated 186,000 articles, over 1,500 US newspapers. And what did he find? He found that 9% of AI-generated 9% of the articles audited were AI-generated or mixed. That's almost 1 every 10 article that has an algorithmic fingerprint. Pangram zoomed in on 10 respected veteran journalists, very serious people, who would write about us equally serious topics: politics, governance, the environment. Again, what did he find? He found that before the birth of ChatGPT, so to speak, in 2022, as you might expect, the AI use in their own material hovered around 0, which is quite, it's not surprising. And then it all exploded. You can see here in 2023, it was a little over 15%. A year later, it jumped to 36%. And this year, it reached 40.4%. And in the case of one surveyed journalist, you can see here the red column, it even reached a staggering 90%. So I don't know about you, but I really cannot call this AI assistance. This is almost AI delegation. What they found as well was that none of these 10 senior journalists disclosed AI use to their readers, not even once. So this became known as the AI reporter case files, by the way. So the researchers widened the scope for another 100 more AI-flagged articles across multiple publications. The findings were as follows. 95% of authors did 0 AI disclosure, and neither did 91% of publishers. That's huge. And only 5 disclosures were found in total in that huge sample that Pangram sifted through. And all were in low-risk topics, weather, air quality, and so forth. And only 7 newspapers in that sample had actually a public AI policy. That's very, very, very low. And for the 2 newspapers, I'm talking about the New York Post and the Michigan Daily, who had explicit generative AI ban, Pangram still detected AI-flagged content. So in other words, even the rulemakers were breaking their own rules. Moving on to this investigation, we just uncovered 3 major patterns. First, AI use was widespread but uneven. Second, AI was clustered around data-heavy pieces. It has a topical preference. And third, and perhaps most unsettling, it was found that 6.5% times more likely to be detected in opinion pieces. And even in elite outlets like the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Wall Street Journal, the same amount, the same difference, the same ratio, was being detected. So that means that opinion pieces are more likely to be AI generated than straight news reporting. So finally, let's talk about the key issue here, which is trust. So I'm giving you all the findings here. 76% of Americans said that they actually thought it was crucial to know if an article was written with the help of AI. And over half of them said that they would trust it less if it was. So that's quite important to keep in mind. What did this study conclude? Well, I think you've all guessed by now, readers are largely unable to determine the role AI plays in article authorship. So, this fear is not quite irrational, to be honest. And I think it's because LLMs hallucinate. We all know that they inherit bias. They deliver fiction with absolute confidence. So it is kind of unsettling to realize that this much content is actually produced. We don't know to what extent exactly, but that it is produced with the help of generative AI, and LLMs in particular here. So, why am I giving you all this data? It's actually to come to this particular question. So, if you don't know who is shaping the words in front of you, do you think you know who or what is shaping the way you think? I'm going to let you sit with that thought for a while. Another little game, let me play with you. But be honest, okay? Because otherwise, I don't think we're going to get a feel of the room if you can't just open up to me, so to speak. So raise your hand if at least once this week you've been using one of the LLMs to draft an email, a text message in another language, an essay, if there's any students. I don't see any students in the room, but anyways. So, yes, 2, 3. That's all? Oh, that's quite reasonable. I was expecting more. Okay. Keep your hand up if you systematically disclose that you had used these LLMs at the end of your email. Postscriptum, this email has been drafted with the help of AI. No hands there. So you see, it's not just journalists themselves who do that. We all do it in our daily life. And why is this important for us to ponder on this? I think it's because it begs the following question. How do we draw a line between AI assistance and AI delegation? And what do we consider authorship in the end? Is grammar spell check? Is, I don't know, a full redraft? Does that undermine your feeling of authorship of whatever email or prose actually you produce? So let's start from the online written press for a moment and turn our gaze to the broadcast industry that I actually know a little bit more because myself, I am a former broadcast journalist. It's not news to you to tell you that over the past 5 years, news consumed through video jumped from 52 to 65%. And in countries such as in the Philippines, Thailand, Kenya, and India, now people prefer to watch the news rather than read it. Some of them don't even read it anymore. This has triggered what researchers call the creatification of journalism. What does it mean? It means that audiences are shifting away from institutions toward actually individual and personality-based content. So trust has increasingly been built on relatability, tone, identity, popularity, the number of followers, and the likes. And in France, Hugo Décrypte, I'm sure you're familiar with him, he actually reaches almost a quarter of the under 35s for news content through YouTube and TikTok. But what I find disturbing is this. 77% of these news creators on YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, whatever, they admit to no prior journalistic experience. And 62 don't even guarantee that the information they're sharing has either been fact-checked or verified. So that's quite scary. And now there's this.
Hello, and welcome to Channel One, a new way of consuming, reporting, and thinking about the news powered by artificial intelligence. Today, you'll witness AI-generated stories and headlines, captivating visuals, and data-driven insights. From global news to finance to entertainment, we'll show you how technology enables us to bring you a global perspective 24/7, right from the heart of our AI-native newsroom. all presented by our team of AI-generated reporters.
Maybe you hear the words artificial intelligence and you're immediately skeptical or concerned about technology gone crazy. But everything you'll see on Channel 1 relies on trusted sources and fact-checking and uses AI to give you news the way you want it, personalized, localized, and distilled. Through it all, our mission is to provide you with accurate, unbiased, and trustworthy news. Technology may be the tool, but journalism's core values of integrity and accountability are at the heart of everything we do.
Today we're going to show off some of the technology we're using to build Channel 1. We'll show you how AI powers and empowers our newsroom to deliver journalism that's fast, trustworthy, and accurate. Let's start with our reporters. You can hear us and see our lips moving. But no one was recorded saying what we're all saying. I'm powered by sophisticated systems behind the scenes. And I can speak in any language. Για παράδειγμα, αυτή τη στιγμή μιλάω στα ελληνικά. O kung pinapanood mo ako mula sa Maynila, marunong akong magsalita ng Filipino. எனக்கும் தமிழ் பேசத் தெரியும் என்று நீங்கள் யூகித்திருக்க என்று நான் நம்புகிறேன். In fact, you can see even more language samples on our website. Channel 1's anchors can even be completely generated to have their own personality, appearance, and voice.
Now you've been seeing the future of broadcast journalism. Can I ask, for those who felt quite comfortable and excited about technological innovation, to raise the hand in the room? Thank you. If you, after watching this faceless news channel, did you feel excited at the innovation and new techs? Two? Okay. Who's quite neutral or slightly ambivalent? Not sure. Yes? Okay. And who's downright uncomfortable and easy? Okay. Very interesting. I was expecting more people uncomfortable, so that's quite an uplifting thought. So, as I said, this is not just a Western-only phenomena. Did you actually know that journalists from the global South are actually even bigger users of AI? And this has to do also with their the economic model and their working conditions. But this is for another maybe lecture. It doesn't matter. We all know that it's all a global system and it's collapsing because of different factors that I'm going to detail here. And it's hurting publishers everywhere. So, we call this the click thief economy. I'm, of course, talking about AI summaries. Why am I saying this? It's because whenever an AI summary, I'm sure you're familiar, are you all familiar with the AI summaries? Meaning that when you search something on Google, you have this little text, yeah, that doesn't even redirect you or offer 200,000, links that you have to click one by one. So, okay. So, what is important here to note? It's the difference between the traditional way of getting clicks, because that's how actually journalists, especially online digital journalists, survive. They have to survive through the click-through rate model. But whenever the AI summary started to appear, you can see the sharp decline almost by half of the clicks. So very few people click, even when there is a link in the AI summary itself. And this is quite catastrophic and dramatic for the industry. So, 74% of news executives are, of course, extremely worried about declining traffic. And 72% of media leaders want collective licensing agreements. What's happening now is that the heavyweights, like the New York Post, Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, all these heavyweights, they can initiate individual negotiations with these tech giants. But the other smaller media outlets just don't have the same capacity to do so. So next, on our world tour, we move to the UK. I'm taking you this time on a fantastic, very interesting study that the BBC and the EBU, the European Broadcasting Corporation, conducted into 4 major AI assistants. I'm sure you're familiar with all of them, if not most of them. ChatGPT, Microsoft's Copilot, Perplexity, and Google Gemini. So they asked a simple question. Can AI answer news questions to a journalistic standard? Any idea of the answer that they found? Do you think the AI summaries are up to journalistic standards? Okay, let me tell you then. 45% of responses contained a significant problem that could mislead users. Nearly half. And we're not talking tiny mistakes, okay? We're talking fabricated facts, incorrect timeliness, opinions presented as facts, and sources that don't exist. So, what does that do to trust? Of course, you might want to ask me. Well, according to UK audiences, 84% say that factual errors severely damage trust. 76% say that sourcing errors break credibility. 73% feel that added opinions, on top of facts, erode confidence. So here's the real issue. If journalists use AI tools that misrepresent reality, even occasionally, I feel, it is my opinion, that they are gambling with the last currency they still own, credibility. But so far, I realize I've covered mostly negative aspects of AI use and its impact on journalism. And I want to stress that nuance is key. I feel it's an extremely factor to keep in mind, hence the cheeky title here. Because not everything is black or white. It's more shades of gray. 50 shades of gray. And actually, it's even more nuanced that many experts care even to admit when it comes to the current conversation around journalism and artificial intelligence. There often is fear before there is fact. So here are the facts. AI is not inherently harmful. When used in limited, transparent, clearly defined ways, it's already strengthening journalism, not replacing it. But there's a caveat, not for the short-term foreseeable future, because many journalists feel severe job displacement in the mid to long term. 70% of news organizations use AI to streamline workflows. That means that journalists are spending less and less time on repetitive tasks. In the example here I'm giving you, Bloomberg reduced actually headline writing time by a half using AI. AI doesn't just generate information, it can also detect and flag misinformation. So the very tools that can actually be used to deceive and create these, fake news that you've seen in the beginning of my presentation can also be harnessed as a shield for truth. And to me, I think this is one of its great paradoxes of AI, but also one of its greatest powers, because the very same tool that's doing so much damage can also be used to actually counter this damage, mitigation. AI can increase reach, and you can see here that with the help of AI-powered translation, there's been an increase, quite significant, 20% here, in global readership. It can personalize content. I'm not actually telling you anything you don't already know. Adapting headlines to reader behavior has led to 20% increase in sales and 10% greater customer loyalty. But here's the other side of the story, the darker shades of gray. And it's not what you think. So it's again about trust. You can see it on the visual that 84% of people think that factual errors, such as wrong date or numbers, would have a major impact on trust. 81% say that when you present opinion as fact, their trust is severely damaged. And 76% say sourcing or attribution errors would do the same. And now on to the interesting question of who gets blamed for this. You can see it here. 36% point to AI providers, 31% to governments and regulators, 23% to news organizations. And there's another 10% which is for others. But here is the takeaway from this. Over half of the UK adult population is extremely concerned about AI and its impact on the future of journalism. But despite everything, despite the fake news, influencers, political manipulation, 38% of people still go to trusted news outlet to verify a story. I know it's very low, but it's still there. And 35% turn to official sources. And you can see that the public has said in those studies that I've compiled that the biggest threats remain politicians on the one hand, influencers, and online personalities on the other hand, in equal measures, almost 50%. So to me, perhaps the question is not, can AI help journalists? Because clearly it can, but to what effect? So this is where the pivot happens, in my opinion, because journalism has to actually adapt to its new ecosystem. It has to stop just being the entity or the ecosystem that would publish information top-down. So it has to become a collaborative and participative partner in all of this. So here we are now, surrounded by machines that can write, some even content that can think, faces that don't exist, stories that aren't real, as I showed you earlier, truth that now needs to be evidenced just to be believed, and a brand new role for journalists, 3.0. I think I've spoken long enough. I realize I've gone a little bit over my speaking time. But before we open the floor for questions, let me leave you with one final defining question. And this is the ambition of this talk, is not to give you answers, but leave you with better questions. So do you think that journalism can survive or even thrive in the age of co-creation? Or are we already collectively co-authoring its obituary? Thank you.
Thanks for this very exciting presentation. I remember reading some American philosophers, like the pragmatic philosophers like Richard Rorty or some others, who always deny the possibility of defining truth. You know, truth is not any reflection of reality. Truth is just what works, you know. A very kind of pragmatic type of attitude. It's not surprising that all those experiments that you've shown is more in the Anglo-Saxon or the American world where, you know, people are trying things. Don't you think that at the end of the day, you know, that is what's happening? You know, we're working a world where obviously AI is creating a lot of disruption. We have, and some American would say that let's try things, let's see how the society evolves with those things, and let's see what happens, you know. And so, you know, European tends to be much more cautious than American people. So there is this pragmatism, which is typically American. Perhaps journalism will disappear, perhaps something else will, you know, take place. But what do you think about this type of a kind of very pragmatic attitude?
I think I agree with you here that, yes, I think the Anglo-Saxon world, I don't want to be too severe and say that they lack foresight or anticipation, but I think indeed they're more like go-getters and they're more adventurous. And of course, I don't think they have necessarily anticipated the huge disruption, actually, that these tools have been actually have brought about. But the co-creation here, I want to stress that it's not just co-creation with machines, it's also co-creation with an audience that is changing in its expectation of the news. And my answer to you is this, and it might be disappointing, so I apologize in advance, but I think that journalism has no choice for its survival but change its very function. It can no longer survive in the way it used to be. It can no longer be top-down. Because we had journalism 1.0 was top-down, so one article, one piece of content, news content for everyone, and the audience was very passive. And then we had journalism 2.0, which was through social media, which was engagement and diffusion. And now journalism 3.0 has to be just one of those three partners that I told you. So we have to also back down on our ambition in terms of journalists. But I think what we can also gamble on the added value of journalism, which is ethical standards, trustworthiness, personalized, content for the audience. So we still have our relevance, I think. So professional journalists, personalities, citizen journalists, and machines. But I think journalism, if you want to survive, has to reinvent actually an economic model. I told you, right? It's no longer the clicks. And also the fact that we can bring an added value to this news being fact-checked, ethical, personalized, trustworthy. And so we have to have a sort of ethics charter, maybe a global ethics charter for journalists, so the audience still feels that we have a role to play. I don't know if we can rise to that challenge. I have no idea. But I surely hope we do, because it would be too sad, and I'm maybe biased, for journalism to disappear altogether, because now it's just people and machines, and journalism is just, la cinquième roue du carrosse, as we would say. So I hope I haven't disappointed you too much with my...
You will answer in English, so I'd rather ask in English. 2 points in my question. The first one is that you put forward quite a lot the drawbacks or the weaknesses of AI as of today, as a potential threat to the trust and everything. And again, that's going to sound bold on my part, but I'm not sure it's a very good argument as of today, because like every other tool, what happens if in 2 years the level of mistakes goes down to 5%, which is most quite likely to happen because we tend to forget, I'm sure you're not because you're studying, that tool is young and not so young, but I would say the very operational, full blast version of AI is quite recent, so I'm not surprised it's not that good yet. I'm very often, even though it's not the same, I'm very often comparing it to Wikipedia, which was not so good 20 years ago. People forget about it, how students would copy it with plenty of mistakes, and now it's much better. I'm guessing it's going to get better. I think, sorry, I'm slightly very quickly my 2 points. The first one I think is, before the ethical, there's first a challenge with, this time I'm going to use the word in French, but because I'm not sure it's the same in English, of alienation, meaning we're going to lose the practice of actually writing and commenting and writing a story. We're going to lose also, if we get too much, are we going to put maybe more money into people getting onto the ground? I'm giving you a very concrete example. You can have all the AI in the world. There are no journalists in the Gaza Strip as of today. We have no information. That seems kind of a challenge. And because I was speaking a little bit before you, before the pause, I was mentioning that also about how the economy is turning onto itself, meaning the economy is justifying itself. Because everything you said about the evolution is only just for one reason, economical reasons. So I'm sorry, in the end, to me, and I would like to have your point of view, not only I don't think it's impossible to stop, but I think it's pretty much stupid to support it. It just doesn't have any sense, because the only reason we're using it are economical.
Absolutely.
Does that justify that we lose the first goal? That was one of my points in my presentation, going back to the original goal, which you pointed out, bringing out good information of quality that is trustworthy. That is not what this tool is doing. It's just helping to save money. So I don't understand that. I think it should be more of an argument of saying, stop using the economical argument, because we're losing the essence of the craft itself.
Okay.
How do you feel about that?
So 3 questions in one, very quickly. First of all, my presentation was actually much longer, so I had a disclaimer in the beginning saying that everything I'm telling you today and the data I've compiled, even though it's from 2025, it's already outdated. So today's truth is already on a timer. Even the clip I showed you about the full AI faceless news channel dates back from 2024. So I couldn't agree more with you. Even the AI summaries, they will be, even LLMs will be less prone to hallucinate. We've already seen this with Gemini 3 and ChatGPT 5.1. So I take that on board completely. Now, you said something about the fact that the economical model, yes, the paradox with AI is that it comes as a relief for extremely strained working conditions of journalists. That's why I said they streamline workflows. But they do actually induce job displacement because they work so fast, tirelessly. We call them the tireless interns in the newsrooms because they can never complain, they never go sick. So they actually do, I mean, a 5-strong team that we needed before would be reduced to one tool. So in that sense, we still need the human factor, but you can understand that with the help of AI, for economical reasons, actually leads to shrinking teams because less and less people are needed to do the same. So, what's the point of what?
Except making more money. That's the only point of having smaller teams. That's the only point.
No, it's because, for example, for investigative journalism, AI is hugely helpful. What would take months and months and months for investigative journalists would only take, I don't know, half a day for the AI things. So it actually has a real added value. But the problem is that it replaces entry-level jobs, and also, for example, we have a category of jobs called subs, the ones who would check the language, now is delegated onto AI. So journalism will see a big portion of its staffing completely replaced by AI at some stage or another. But also it saves money because, of course, costs are reused. I don't know whether I have answered completely your question there.
Yeah, I think we don't totally...
Well, I will say this. It's been 15 years that journalism is increasingly struggling economically speaking. Trust me, it's really hard to make a living out of journalism. So if instead of spending 8 hours on crafting a super wonderful headline, an AI tool allows me to do this in half an hour, there is a point. Do you see what I mean? It alleviates my very difficult working conditions as a journalist, but on the other hand, it threatens also my very existence. So yeah, it's all in the balance.
Well, thank you very much for this very interesting lecture. I'll try to do the synthesis in English, so I apologize for your suffering and pain, which is about to come. Although it was a very, very, very interesting, frightening but interesting lecture about how AI is redefining journalism. You've taken us through the different types of AI, both the multimodal one, the generative one, the agentic one, different types of AI that participate to create these new types of contents and trains from people. And you've broken very, very soon the glass in which by telling us that, well, if we all think that AI might be bad or we react to the AI by not understanding what's fake and what's true, we are getting kind of a bit hypocritical, sorry. Hypocrite? We're being hypocrites because we already all use AI in our work as students or as people, in our mails and everything, and even news media outlets which ban AIs use it. So I don't really know if you wanted to say that we have to catch the train, but you definitely said that the train is moving very fast and that most of what you've said today will be wrong or outdated tomorrow. You've also outlined how these changes in AI-generated news content and AI content in general is the newest part in the changes in journalism, such as creatification, which is the centering of news creation around personal individuals and not journalism, which was the first step in the diminution of trust, as you say it, toward news and toward the information we get, the pieces of information we get. And you described AI as the next step in this creatification, because we might see very soon the creation of faceless news channels. Although you said faceless, maybe it's my English that's not very good, but the most disturbing part to me is that these content have a face. They just don't have a person, because they emulate people. They represent fake people. And you've finally given us a perspective on how this will change the journalism economy through the click thief economy, how the AI summaries tend to, well, steal the precedent revenues of different media outlets, how it might as well change or threaten the existence of low-level journalism jobs, and how it gambles with credibility of all news. So it was very, very frightening for a very novice person as I am in journalism, though it was also very interesting in the fact that I suggest that I would like to suggest that this could be completed with a sociological point of view on this question of journalism and information and the everyone's way of acquiring information. Because a new book is actually being published a few weeks ago about this topic, which is from a French sociologist, thank you, which is Gérald Bronner. The book is called À l'assaut du réel. I won't lie, I haven't read it, but he's made the news about it, so it might be a good complementary thing to read it after your very interesting lecture. Thank you.